Hey y'all, welcome back or welcome to the Easton Homestead. Today's video is all about how to make a sourdough starter. I'm using freshly milled rye flour for this sourdough starter. I took 1 cup of rye flour and a half a cup of warm water and mixed it together in a nice clean mason jar, and we're going to let this sit for a couple days. So you want the fermentation process to be able to start, so you don't want to put a lid on it. You're going to just use something like a cloth or a paper towel to cover it up so the air can still get in there. So here we are on day 2. You can see that there are some bubbles in our starter. The top's a little bit dry, but that's perfectly fine. We're going to scoop that off anyways, but this is a great sign that the fermentation process has begun and it's successful. So here we are on day 3. You can see that the starter has doubled in size and it rose and then fell back down. That's what you want to see in a healthy starter, is it to rise and to fall. Normally, you may not see that on day 3. This is a very, very active starter. Rye is really good for sourdough starters, and that might be why. This is freshly milled flour. I mill it myself right before I use it. So I'm just going to feed it for the first time. So I discarded all but 1/2 cup, and I fed it 1 cup of rye flour and a half a cup of warm water, and I cleaned the jar. So now we're on to day 4. Our starter has doubled in size. You can see those big, beautiful bubbles. This is, like I said, a really active starter. By now, you should at least see some bubbling and signs of hunger, like hooch, which is just liquid on the top. So if your starter has not doubled in size yet, don't freak out. It's fine. Mine, like I said, it just seems to be a really active starter. I think it's probably has something to do with its freshly milled flour and not store-bought flour. That might have something to do with it, but this is day 4. So we're just going to feed it again. We're going to discard all but a half a cup and feed it 1 cup of rye flour and a half a cup of warm water. You can see the bubbles as I stir in there a little bit. You can see that's the gluten network in there. Those beautiful bubbles. So I fed it and it's ready to go back into a nice clean mason jar. You always want to clean your mason jar because you want to be able to see the progress that your starter has made, the rising and the falling. Is it doubling in size? Is there any bubbles? I highly recommend using a clear jar for this process so that you can see that it is rising, it's falling. So it's clean, and you can even put a rubber band to measure where your starter began if you want. So we're on day 5 now. You can see it's almost exploding out of the jar. I'm going to have to upgrade the jar eventually. I'm going to feed it twice today. Every 12 hours, I'm going to feed it. So it's going to get a total of 2 feedings today. And we're going to see how long it takes for this starter to rise. So here's day 6. As you can see, it exploded out the top, so I'm going to have to put it in a different jar. I'm going to feed it again 12 hours apart, so twice today. I put it in a larger jar, and let's see how fast it metabolizes that flour. So this is day 7. I just fed it. Let's give it a few hours and see what it does. So this was after about 4 hours. It's rose and it's already fallen. So this is a great sign. You want to see that rise and that fall. This is why it's important to clean your jar every day so that you can see the activity of your starter. So here we are on day 8. Our starter is rising and falling really well. You can see at the top where it rose and how it fell back down. So it's signs that it's hungry and needs to be fed. So I fed my starter. This is about 3-4 hours later. It's doubling in size. It's nicely. This is what you want to see. You want to see that growth of that starter, that rise and that fall. So here we are on day 9. Our starter is hungry. It's risen and fallen, which means it's ready to be fed again. So I'm going to mill up 1 cup of rye flour. You see how fine this flour is. I use a hand crank mill. I have an electric mill ordered, but for now this is what I'm using. You can see the gluten network here in this jar. So I was scooping it out. I wanted to take a video. So I've just fed it and washed my jar, and I'm going to put it back in here, and I'm going to show you guys what it looks like now. This is after it's just been fed. This is an hour and a half later. It's almost doubled in size already. So this starter is doing really well. So this is 2 hours and 15 minutes after feeding. It's metabolizing that flour rather quickly. This is what you want to see. Here's the top of it. It should also have a sour smell as well. So by now you are able to save your discard. So whenever you discard all but half cup, you can put that part, the discard, in a separate container for discard recipes. Your starter should be strong enough by now to use that for pancakes, waffles, pizzas, flatbreads, you name it. Stay tuned for part 2.